Hi, I'm BJ. I'm from Eagle Leather, and today I'm going to be speaking to Brett from the Laird.
Hey folks.
So the Laird's been through so many changes over the years. Could you just tell me a little bit more about its original origins and where it is now?
Well, I'll start from where it began. I think that's the easiest. Look. The Laird, it has a very long history, and one of the best things is that you can ask different people because it's been 40 years. You get these tales of like somebody's got this version, somebody's got that version. But I've over the years I've managed to talk to a lot of guys who came here and glean the best and the most accurate information, I guess. There was gay guys coming here before 1980, before it was even officially, owned by gay guys. There was the front bar, and there was the back salon area. The front bar was very much for the locals, and the locals, the lady with her cat that used to sit on the bar, and she'd come in and have her sherry every night. The locals would sit in the front bar, and out the back was the salon where the gentleman would be out the back. I don't know what, yeah. But back then it was very much these are the days of, I guess everything was still a bit underground. We weren't legal then, of course, or our sexuality wasn't legal, or to practice it. So it was very much, there wasn't the out and the flamboyance that we have now and we accept now and we are part of. It was very much you had to fit into mainstream society, so you wouldn't be flouncing down the street in a rocking a pair of heels and something fabulous like you can do now. It was very much you needed to look like your everyday bloke, so it was jeans, t-shirts, and flannelette shirts, and it's where a lot of the things originated from, like the Jackaroos, the motorcycle clubs, the SMPC, Southern Cross Motorcycle Club, and some of those sort of, they were into going out camping, riding bikes, doing all that, doing what guys do. It's just that they were gay guys and they were just, so they were a bit alienated, so this was the perfect place to be hanging out. Of course then, things like bear scenes started to come into things. So guys who didn't feel accepted in mainstream gay society, which has flipped completely these days. The things merge quite well. So, look, it's just been a really long ride. I think probably, if anything, I'd say the most, without having been there myself, the most time where things really changed and pivoted and amazing things happened was probably those early years, 78, 79, right through to the 90s, where, we were still fitting into society. We were still shunned. The terrible mid-80s, early to mid-80s, some of that stigma still lives on. But where guys were, this place was a haven for guys to come, feel comfortable. We've got the accommodation records dating right back to the 80s. When it wasn't men only back then, but, you had the odd female patron staying. But it's got a deep history, and it really is. That's a fascinating thing. You can come on a Thursday night's probably one of the best nights. It's when a lot of the gear guys come, and you can talk to some of the guys, and they'll tell you the stories about what used to happen back in the day. There's some really hilarious stories. There's also some real stories that really get you. Down in the gum tree at the back. We've heard various reports on exactly when that was planted, but it's a big, beautiful gum tree, and it's got a lot of history. It's got a lot of ashes scattered around it, but also the fact that, like in the front bar, in Nuggets Bar, there's this loose brick, like all the mortar's gone from it, and we've never touched it since we heard the story. Well, we never did touch it, but once we heard the story, we will never touch it. But it's this loose brick that you could pull out if you wanted to, but apparently there's quite a few ashes behind there as well. Back in the mid-80s, early 90s, guys, families were not taking their bodies. They didn't accept them, and so their mates had nothing to do but, bring them to the place where they did feel at home. So there's ashes all over this place, in the urinal. I've one of my doctors has actually said the last time he came here in the 90s, him and his mates had to scatter half of his mates' ashes here in the urinal, on the other half at Club 80 downstairs. Because he just wanted to be pissed on forever. You know, there's just amazing stories. I could go on, and that's why you sometimes need to come here and talk to some of the people to hear these. These are stories that I've heard. They're not stories that I've experienced, but I've heard. So it's just to be part of the legacy that is that. It's pretty amazing. You know, and since then, yeah, we became men only, and a lot of journeys since then. But those early years of what made the Laird what it is today.
So what's the most interesting thing that you've ever witnessed here? Can I ask that?
Okay, so that is going to come down to, first of all, I have to break this into things that I will talk about on camera and things that I won't. So the things that I will talk about on camera, of course, it has to be something to do with Midsummer Morning, with mooning, the sort of thing that everybody has a giggle at, everyone has a laugh at, you know, and that event alone, mooning, which was born out of, you know, mid to late 90s fundraising for David Williams Fund, for people living with HIV sometimes, and it was the NAG, No Attitude guys, Paul Evans and Tex McKenzie that started that, and sometimes it was for the AIDS Memorial Garden. It was just all different things, but it was always to do with people living with HIV. And mooning, you know, back in the day, it used to raise so much money, and one of our first ones, we actually had Judith, Lucy and Denise Scott. Of course, so we bought them, Mark bought them up here beforehand, we snuck them in the venue, because people didn't know, we didn't announce that they were on. And we snuck them up here beforehand. Mark's gone, okay, so what's the deal? And Mark's put up a bottle of champagne and saying, here you go, girls, you know, treat them well. And they're like, oh, we've got nude suits. And Mark's like, okay, nude suits. And they're like, yeah, we thought we'd do this thing, nude suits. And we've got the ball gag things. Oh, and we've got some strap-on dildos as well. I'm like, Mark's like, okay, let's do that. So Mark's there helping Judith, Lucy, Denise Scott, who are currently on tour, and apparently they still tell this story about this. He helps them strap on their dildos and things, and they come downstairs. I've got the VHS cassette that I recorded on video at the time with amazing audio. Keep an eye out. We'll put it out there soon. And they come out on stage in these black cloaks, like sort of, you know, like wizard cloaks, all hidden up. I think the music was "Do You Think I'm Sexy" or something like that. And then they whip off the cloaks, and there is two bodies in gimp masks with nude suits and strap-on dildos, and everyone's like, oh yeah. And then the gimp masks come off, and it's Judith Lucy, it's Denise Scott. People you see on TV, people you see on Hey 8 Saturday, people you see on morning television dressed like this for this cause. And it's just like, I was crying with laughter, crying with proudness, everything. It was just insane to see that. And the set that they did, they were just meant to come up, do a 5 to 10 minute skit and help us auction off a thing, and that was it. They ended up helping us auction, I think there was a strap-on, it was one of those things that you got from the more the straight porn shops, like a strap-in bondage, inflatable bondage chair that, oh no, I can't get out of it. I mean, come on, you could just rip the fucking thing apart. But it was, sorry if I said that, but it was, you know, and I think they're sitting there, you know, with this bondage chair. It was just insane. It was just like to have these two women doing that, and the crowd were ballistic, you know. This is one of the first times we brought women into the venue since we'd taken over, Mark and I had taken over. And we were all a bit, oh, you know, what about? No, the boys loved it. The boys absolutely loved it. You couldn't, and if even one person decided to try and heckle, this is Judith Lucy and Denise Scott, no. Dude, you are getting slammed, you know. So it was just one of my favourite moments. There's just as funny moments there from mooning, but it's things like, which came from mooning, of course, if you don't know, mooning is a bare butt and wet jock competition. Usually held every January. We're holding it again soon, but because of COVID, it's been on and off. So of course, the wet jock comp, everybody knows what that is. You get squirted with some ice cold water and in your wet jock. But the butt part is the interesting part. First of all, it's come out and wave it and show us how good your butt is. That's great. The third part after that in the wet jock is what can you do with that part of your body, the rear. Some people just draw a little face. Someone's done, you know, a picture of ScoMo on their butt, you know. Or screw Tony Abbott, something like that, when it was a marriage equality thing, or But we've had, to list a few things, we've had 5 metres of fairy lights lit up, come out. We've had Mary Had a Little Lamb on a recorder. And the most famous one of all, I think, is what came first, the chicken or the egg? Eggs, rubber chicken, that made that noise as well. And that's the one that people still ask to this day, did that really happen? And we're like, it really happened. Yeah. Yep.
Wonderful.
We may or not have video or photographic evidence of that. Yeah. So that's sort of the crazy times, you know. We've seen so many good times. We've seen beautiful times of things where people from the community, we've had awards things, and someone from the community who's worked so hard gets rewarded for something, you know, and there's something to do with the pub or whatever. It's just, there's so many things that this pub has seen in its history, and maybe I'll get time to write it all out one day. Like I hope that a lot of other people, like Laurie Lane, like Paul Evans, like all these different people will get time to write out what happened to the Laird, because it's really is iconic. Yeah, and it needs that history written.
Absolutely. What most interested you about taking up a career at the Laird?
So we got approached by Bill Saunders, who was the owner of the Laird at the time. He still had Club 80, he still had the Peel Hotel, and he saw us working at the Park Hotel, filling in for mates down there who own the park. They were off for a staff party. They're like, Brett and Mark, can you run the bar at the park for us? Bill saw us working behind the bar, and he's like, well, would you guys like to run the Laird? And at the time, Mark and I, we came here a few times every year. We'd come along for a bear event or something like that, but we weren't really leather or bear guys. We were just two guys who'd go out, catch up with mates. So when he said that, we were like, sure, and then we started to hear of some of the things that spit and polish, underwear parties. It's when I realised I'm vanilla. Yeah, you know, and I would be facilitating these other events that might happen. There may or not be dimly lit social areas back then, pre-COVID. There may be these things happening, and it was like, okay, well, if that's what happens, then...
So what is it like being somebody who's vanilla, being kind of almost like a centre point for so much of kink activities that go on in Melbourne?
I think that's a really good question, and I never get asked that seriously, or in a way that you've just asked me, and I really appreciate that. Because for both Mark and I, it's like, okay, let's learn more about this thing that's being talked to us about, this fetish, this whatever, that. Okay, does it harm anyone? Does anyone get harmed? Is there consent? Is all these things? And we would go, you know, when we first took over, and you would know, BJ, we'd go to you guys, we'd go to Paul and Richard Manhouse, we'd go to Tex at Thorn Harbour or Victorian AIDS Council, we'd go to all these people, we could reach out to and say, guys, and especially, you know, the people at Victorian AIDS Council back at the time, Tex McKenzie was our first lifeline. Tex, they do this underwear party and people are dancing around in their underwear. And he's like, yeah, it's fine. Everyone knows. The police know. The council know. Everyone knows. Health department knows. It's great. It's better than guys being out on the street. You know, it's a really good thing. And we're able to, you know, provide, if people decide to have sex, just like they do at the casino, just like they do in a McDonald's toilet, they do here as well. But, you know, there's sex packs, there's education stuff, there's all this, people can talk, and it's open. It's not hidden in a cubicle it's still in a cubicle maybe, but it's just not, you know, we have to hide our thing here. There's sex packs out there provided by, you know, Thorn Harbour Health and things, and there's just this stuff where there's no negative connotations, which made us feel better about it. Mm-hmm. And therefore made us really proud to be those vanilla guys, the vanilla facilitators, I call us. We facilitate what was, back then it was leather, then the rubber came along, which was amazing because it added a whole new element. The pups came in, and that was a trial on its own, you know, sort of getting the pups into a social space that, you know, didn't normally happen, you know, back then. And now all of those things work really well. The bears were there all along, and that's had its... As with anything, there's ups and downs as you know, when you deal with community groups, but it's always been really good, and we've got so much respect from the community, and we've got so much respect for the community. Yeah.
And you do, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So what would you say would be the thing that you're most proud of during your time here at the Laird?
I think, and it harks back to what it was when we took over. The thing I'm most proud of, I would say, and I hope that I speak for Mark here as well, is that we were able to fit into what the Laird is, what that brings, listen to people, not come along and go, let's just do vanilla things, let's do this, let's do that. It was really about, okay, how do we do these things? And let's put our own stamp on things, you know. Like, say, with the Week of Leather, which came about not long after we took over, and it was like, let's do it. But the person that pretty much, or the two people, Mark and I sit there each year and go, yeah, we're doing this. And it's pretty much us, like I do all the media for it. And it's really weird doing the media for something where, you know, a few hundred leathermen come along and enjoy it. And there's no issue with it. It's not like people are going, oh, you know, shouldn't it be someone from the leather community? It's like, no, it's all done. I consult everyone anyway. I think we're really proud that we came in, we made it into, we saw it, this business as a, and you can, I always change this percentage, but it might be 60% business, 40% community. And some people would go, you can't run a business like that. It's like bullshit. If you respect the community, do things for the community, and give that 40% to the community, it comes back in business.
Absolutely.
And we are businessmen, you know, we have to run a business, you know. So I think what we're really proud of in the end, in short, is that we're able to do that, adjust ourselves, our attitudes, learn more. Learning, one of the biggest things I'm proud of is the way that Mark and I dealt with when the issue finally came up, was that, and we had to deal with it, was with trans guys coming in. And it was like, cool, you know, there's some great people out there to talk to advise us, to teach us all about this. And one of the best was Sally Goldner from Transgender Victoria. She was fantastic. Jez Pears, all these people who were just like, okay, they sat there and they said, ask us all the questions. They let us ask those dumb questions where you ask them and then you go, oh, of course, you know, but they let us ask that so we could learn from our mistakes about trans guys, and then we could blatantly put it. You look at our Google, our Instagram, our Facebook, our website, and if there's a description about the Laird, it will now no longer just say where men meet men or masculine men or anything like that. It'll say where cis, a place for cis and trans guys, you know, and it doesn't have to be gay. It doesn't have to be. It can be bisexual. It can be straight. It's about respect, and the majority of them are gay. But yeah, it's so that we're really proud of that and bringing that in and having that history of the Laird. If we closed it too much, it'd just be a shit venue. It'd be, if you just tried to be like this really, what do you call it, like a mono sort of like culture thing. But nah, it's got to evolve, and bringing in that, getting rid of the butch femme sort of thing as well, vibe. I mean, our art competition used to be called a celebration of masculinity. And there was a year where I was about to start doing the artwork for that, and I just felt wrong doing that. The masculinity thing, it's like, why? I'm not always masculine, you know. Like my wrists are, you know, you know, like I'll squeal or whatever. It's not about that, you know. Sometimes the butchest looking man is totally femme, and the most femme looking guy is butch. It's not shit you can really judge and go by. So that's, for us, turning the Laird into where it is now, and knowing that we could pass it on to others who would carry it on and add their little bit, that's what means a lot.
What's one of your most sentimental moments from your time here at the Laird?
That's a really good question, and I'm sure I'll think of something later on that maybe I've blocked or something like that, or, you know, because it's tough, you know, when you run a business, you're not always willing to put it out there. It might be something that you want to keep quite private, because you don't necessarily want people to come up and go, oh, we didn't realise that.
Yeah.
But something that I absolutely, I know Mark will back me up on this. The support we received after that, during and after that first lockdown in COVID, was, I don't need it. It was insane. It was amazing. You know, we had you guys. I mean, you guys were like trying to run a shop, and I'm getting things from Pepper, from Eagle, just constantly going, I hope you guys are all right. And I'm like, Pepper, I hope you're all right. But, you know, Melbourne Rubber guys doing a fundraiser for us without us knowing, and people chipping into that, people saying, is there any way we can help, can we do this? And we're just like, look, and because people are, having really good ideas that didn't quite match, can we, if you order boozing, can we buy it off you? And it's like, it doesn't quite work. Great intentions. And we were just like, guys, just come back when we're open. And that's what they did. That's what people did when they could. They supported us. I think COVID really, for us, showed that we could have been gone. We don't think we would have. We honestly believe that if it came to it, we got through because of government grants and things like that and all that sort of stuff, but if it came to it and if we needed to swallow our pride a bit and call on the community, we know that this pub would still be here. The community wouldn't allow it. And if that meant handing over part of this pub, it's not like, so thanks community, cheers. It would mean bringing the community, whatever it would mean in any way, that's what it would mean, because you can't let this go.
So being a retailer and having, eagle leather, I can tell you now, like, COVID was pretty much one of the hardest moments it was the most hardest moment of our career, being in the middle of the world's longest lockdown. There's so many times when we were at work during that period and just thinking to ourselves, if we're finding it hard, how hard is it for the venues? How hard is it for Brett and Mark at the Laird? At least we were able to do deliveries and we had some type of income. But, really, like, how did you get through it?
I don't know that we've gotten through it fully yet, BJ. I think it's still something that's lingering. I think it will be for yourselves, for a lot of business, for every business, no matter who they are. It's something it lingers. I just look at it as a fatigue thing. There's a fatigue that happens. There's also, it's not a paranoia, but you're just sort of waiting for the next. So we had some restrictions eased the other day, and it's like customers don't have to wear masks, and that's great. That's awesome. Staff still have to wear them, but you're just sort of waiting for that next thing. There's this little, you've got to be positive all the time. You've got to be really positive, and for your customers, you have to be, you want to do that. But there's a little bit in you. If you're asking me honestly in an interview, I'll say that there's this fatigue that hasn't gone away. The first year was just insane, and I admit that I sought a bit more help than I normally would from my doctors back then. The second year, because we got through that New Year's and everyone was like, remember New Year's 2019,
yeah.
2020?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, whoa, that COVID's gone.
Yeah.
Trump's going to be out, COVID's going, 2021's going to be awesome. And then it would have been January 1st or 2nd when everyone's just gone, the hangover's gone, all that sort of going. And it's like, nothing's changed. Yeah. And everyone had to deal with that. So I'm not, saying that our thing was any more, but we all dealt with it in different ways. And, that by the time I got to our first lockdown which was lockdown 4 of 2021, I went a bit mental. Yeah, I'll say it. I was getting the help that I thought I needed, but it wasn't quite enough, and when you're in a pub, it's pretty easy to, find ways to drown that sort of stuff. So I did hit the booze a bit. I did, I did find ways to sort of, try and drown that out. And it's something that I'm now proud, not that you need to be proud to do it, but I think people need to hear people like ourselves say this sort of thing, because I ended up in a clinic for depression and the alcohol thing, and I needed to be there. It was great. It was one of the best things I've ever done, with the support of Mark, employees, family, everyone, family and friends. It was one of the best things I ever did. I got to see all these different other people and meet other people whose stories were similar, totally different, whatever. But and that's one of the tolls of what COVID did. That's, if you're asking about what for us, it wasn't easy for Mark as well. He's dealing with me doing that and all these sorts of things and his own issues. It's a tough one. And then the staff, here's me doing that and then feeling bad about the staff, and they're all going, don't worry about us. It's your boss. It's we're such a great team. So it was really good to be able to do that. Not great that it had to happen, but I had, there's people who just have no support, aren't willing to get support, can't afford support, or just get trodden on so much that they just keep going the wrong way. And I was fortunate, and I'd say that now that I'm voicing it more within the community, I think it's, there's people who actually go, you know what, me too. And if I can have those discussions with people at the bar on a Tuesday night, that's what it's about as well, being able to bring that out of people.
So we've had some conversations before over the years about gentrification and development impacting LGBTQI plus neighbourhoods, and this area in particular is really a hot spot for what we're seeing with gentrification. What do you think we need to do to be able to protect our spaces and the area that we're in?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of it's very much a grassroots thing. I think people being aware of things, and if anything, I'm not here to blow smoke up anyone's butt, but there was when we had issues with the Hollow Street and the traffic and the parking thing, and when you guys really started that grassroots campaign, you were out there filming traffic and doing all this sort of stuff to go, hey, things, proving to the council that things weren't that bad and all this sort of stuff. Other things when you look at it, so people come to Melbourne now and they might not have been here for 15 years and they're like, last time I was here, South Side was huge and all that, which is all apartments now, or fancy straight clubs sort of thing that are gay friendly. But I think the thing is now what I see some awesomeness going on when I look at, okay, so we'll start with us here. I don't think we'll ever be affected by gentrification. We have an amazing set of neighbours across the street here who don't get affected by our noise, because the noise all goes out the back and gets bounced off this wall that our gay neighbours built, thankfully. I don't know if it was intentional, but the noise bounces off and goes up into the sky. It's great. Plus our hetero neighbours are fantastic as well. But the neighbours at the front, they're all just like, oh God, if you were no offence, if you're a straight nightclub, it would be different. People are rowdy right at the front, there's all this sort of stuff. Once we tell the boys on a Sunday night to just, hey guys, inside voices, make your way, and they do respect it in the end. So I think it comes down to, I don't think the Laird will ever be in as much danger as any other venue. I think other high street venues have more trouble. We are off the radar. No one can build us out, and they can't build now thanks to the newer laws. They can't build an apartment block next door and then complain about what we do, because we don't do anything wrong anyway. We're just a bunch of plus having a good time. It's the high street ones I'd worry about, but at the moment I'm seeing really positive things. The Peel's still going, Club 80's gone, but you've still got Circuit and the 86 up there. And one of the most promising things I've seen, so there's a bar called Rainbow up on Smith Street, and I went there with a few mates. And it was just amazing to see, because I'm so stuck in this, is it homogenised? I'm so stuck in this sort of like gay men only sort of environment here, which is amazing and awesome. But when I get out and all of a sudden there's just queer kids left, right and centre, and I'm even in the toilets, the graffiti, I'm like, oh, you crazy kids, how can you see, there's just the graffiti and stuff, and then there's just queerness everywhere. I realise I need to stop trying to guess people's gender, all this sort of stuff, which I can't help doing from here, but I need to let that go when I'm outside of here. And then, even when the show was on, and it was like a couple of drag kings, and then this young girl, she got up and sang a song that she'd written. Now that's performance, so and it was beautiful. But all the queer kids were in the front, sitting down, watching the show, and all us old farts are out the back. And I was like, this is what we need. This is the younger community coming, and we're getting the younger community in here too. Most people have seen it when they come in on a Wednesday night for trivia, which is fun and crazy, and you get to watch sped up porn on the screen, thanks Dean. And then a few weeks later those guys might come back in and they've been to the shops and they've got a bit of rubber on, or they've got some leather, they've got some boots and something, or they're just questioning what else goes on here, and then you start to see them more and more, and I've got no fear for here whatsoever. I've got real hope for what's happening up on the other parts of the north side, and that I believe other venues could open and stay open. I really think that. It's a shame about Club 80, but we still have our saunas. I can't see a sex on premises venue happening again like Club 80, and that's a real shame to see what it is now, this whitewashed, empty office thing. But I think for what the newer generations, maybe they don't need cruise clubs. They also like just hanging out in the parks with their friends who identify as whatever, and it doesn't matter. But like I said, being at that bar the other day was just so... It was just like I couldn't have felt more comfortable with a crowd who I am part of that general thing, but normally I'm just the G and the T in the LGBTI and the B as well, the bisexual as well, yeah. Okay, the GBT. But to be a part of this whole other thing was just amazing. To go, yep, this is my broader community. That's pretty good. I've got a lot of hope.
What would you like the future of the queer community to look like in Melbourne?
I'd say an extension of what it is now, a continuation of what it is now. I'd like to see more celebrations of who we are. And I know the straights deserve their Pride marches too, but recently we had Melbourne Pride, and it was just such an amazing thing. And that was for a reason. That was because 40 years ago, we couldn't do what we want to do in the privacy of our own places in anywhere, and we can now do that. And younger generations probably didn't even realise that. So without that Melbourne Pride event that happened the other week, and then they'd go, what's it for? And they go, it's not just a Pride march to say we're proud that we're gay or whatever. This is because of this. 40 years ago, you could have got a truncheon over the head,
Yeah.
a night in a lockup or worse, who knows. And there's stories out there, you ask the older community, there's terrible stuff, and a black mark against your name, which they've thankfully gotten rid of that. There's guys who had to live with the fact that you've been branded a homosexual, and that's on your record, and that, so the question was really about where we're going to go, where we're going from here. And I think we just need to keep on going. We need to remember, we need to look back, we need to reflect, but we also need to look ahead. And we do need to accept that in general, we're going to branch off a little bit. Some of the kids are going to go and party at straight clubs and that sort of thing. But, I don't see a time where places like this aren't needed, and places like on Smith Street aren't needed, because they're great and they're inclusive. And if once a week one kid can walk into a place like that or here and go, this is what I needed, because their life may be anything from just uncomfortable to absolutely terrifying, that's what matters. That can make the difference.
Thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn more about what we're doing and what we're up to at the Eagle Lever channel, like and subscribe. Brett, thank you so much for coming on board.
It's always a pleasure, BJ, hanging out with you. Like and subscribe, folks.
And how can we find out more about what you're... more about Laird Hotel?
It's a Laird. Look, you can Google, you can Facebook, you can Insta Laird Melbourne, and it's going to come up, because there's not many other Laird things. So, yeah, we're pretty easy to find. If not, ask your mates. They'll know where to find us.
Thank you so much for watching. See you later.